Hey to all my YouTube family out there, it's Jake Mace. I've been in the martial arts my whole life since the age of 8. I got into Chinese martial arts when I was a teenager, and I've been doing it full on ever since. I'm also into some other things: gardening, vegan food, fitness, traveling. I have 3 different YouTube channels that you guys can get the links to down below that cover all these other subjects. I'm becoming more of a real adult. I'm now in my mid-30s, and I found that no matter what the group is, whether it's gardening, whether it's veganism, whether it's traveling, whether it's yoga, whether it's traditional martial arts, there's always groups that form and always mentalities that form around all these activities, and cultiness or cult-like groups can form in no matter what genre or no matter what subject or no matter what hobby you're into. This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart because when you're dealing with martial arts or meditation or diet or breathing, qigong, spirituality, cultiness can always form. And when I talk about cultiness, I'm talking about a mentality or a structure that can very much make you an incredible talent at whatever you're pursuing, like martial arts. But it can also be something that manipulates you in a negative way and gives a lot of power toward the leader or toward the leadership tight council that governs or that controls the hobby you're into. So I was doing some research online. Check this out: categories of cults. There are many different kinds of cults, and if you're in a group of manipulation or a cult, it's sometimes not black and white. A lot of times you might be in a hobby or in a group that is very manipulative towards you in a negative way, and it may be very subtle. It may be very gray as to whether you're in a culty type of group or not. I'll read you a few things here and I'll link them down below so you guys can check out the articles yourself. There are different kinds of cults that exist in the world. Are you in a cult, or are you in a hobby or a group that's manipulating you for their own purposes, for the purposes of the leader, for the purposes of the top dogs in the hobby or the organization? Who knows? But there are different kinds of cults. One here is called an Eastern cult. And Eastern cults are characterized by a belief in spiritual enlightenment and reincarnation, attaining the Godhead and nirvana. Usually the leader of an Eastern cult draws from and distorts an Eastern-based philosophy or religion, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Sufism, Taoism. Sometimes members learn to disregard worldly possessions, and they may take on an ascetic and or celibate lifestyle, meaning like removing themselves from society and abstaining from sex. But it could also be like dietary. You can abstain from meat, you can abstain from sleep deprivation, or performing tasks on little to no sleep is a big part of manipulation and cultiness. Eastern cults also practice influence techniques that include extensive meditation, repeated mantras, altered states of consciousness, celibacy, or sexual restrictions. Typically, cults like to control every aspect of your life, whether it's sex, whether it's food, whether it's sleep, even your internal thoughts, exercise, your hobbies, your travel, your lifestyle, things like that. So these Eastern style cults can also include fasting, dietary restrictions, special dress code, which in the martial arts is like the gi, different kinds of altars or deities you pray to or you revere, and induced trance through chanting, spinning, or other techniques. So right here, when I read about Eastern cults, I'm immediately reminded of a lot of my original training in the martial arts, where me and other beginning students were always taught to revere these iconic figures like Guan Gong or like Damo or like Guan Yin or like Wang Long, the Mantis Master. These different figures that have abilities that we can never have because they have some sort of divine knowledge. A lot of times, a lot of martial art programs have dietary restrictions. For me, it was veganism. In the martial art that I studied, veganism was very common and actually pushed on a lot of the students and a lot of the inner circle. I mean, hell, I'm still vegan to this day, so maybe part of the original training is still with me. Sexual restrictions in the martial arts is very common because a lot of martial arts styles, especially those that have Japanese, Korean, or Chinese roots, they oftentimes talk about managing your sexual practices to stimulate, enhance, suppress, or use your chi, and how sexual chi is the most powerful chi. And so we have to have these different sexual practices to maximize or control our chi. Special dress. How many of you have a martial arts school where you have to wear a certain dress, your shoes or bare feet a certain way, bowing at certain times? You have to have the certain flap on top or the belt not opening certain ways. There are belt stripes and belt system, and a lot of times you treat people within your martial arts group differently depending on what belt level they are, depending on what gi they wear, depending on what patches they've received. Even though you're taught the belt means nothing, it does mean a lot when you're immersed into the martial arts school or program that you're in. And how many of us include meditation, mantras, a trance-like state of focus to enhance our sparring or our technique? The martial arts, very much so, depending on what school you belong to, can definitely fall into this Eastern cult type of group. There are also cults called religious cults that are marked by a belief in God or some higher being, salvation, and the afterlife, sometimes combined with an apocalyptic view, like the world's gonna end. The leader of religious cults reinterprets scripture like the Bible, the Quran, and often claims to be a prophet, if not the Messiah, him or herself. Practices and influence techniques in these religious cults oftentimes include speaking in tongues, chanting, praying, isolation, lengthy study sessions, faith healing, and also many hours spent evangelizing, witnessing, or making public confessions. There are also cults that they call political, racist, or terrorist cults, which are fueled by a belief in a changing society, revolution, or overthrowing the perceived enemy, or getting rid of evil forces. And this is something that also falls into martial arts programs a lot. A lot of times when you're in a very powerful martial arts group or program, there's oftentimes an enemy. And the enemy could be a student who fell out of line, or a past instructor who fell out of line, or maybe even an ancient figure, or maybe even society themselves. And so a lot of times these groups help to keep everybody in line by they have a common enemy. There's also culty groups called psychotherapy, human potential, mass transformational cults. And these ones are motivated by belief in striving for the goal of personal transformation and personal improvement. The leader is self-proclaimed and omniscient with unique insights, sometimes called a super therapist or a super life coach. Practices and techniques include group encounter sessions, which is like ultimate peer pressure, intense probing into your personal life and thoughts, and altered states brought about by hypnosis, meditation, or other trance induction mechanisms, the use of drugs, dream work, past life or future life therapy, which is like diving into your future or diving into your past, or even your past lives, if you believe in that sort of thing. Submersion tanks, like sensory deprivation tanks or float tanks. Shame and intimidation, which is also another form of peer pressure. Verbal abuse, and verbal abuse can be very subtle. A lot of times, comedy is used a lot in the group setting to humiliate people, but do it in a way where the group finds it humorous, but the individual is impacted and they fall back into line. There's also commercial or multi-marketing cults like MLMs or multi-level marketing campaigns. Members are often encouraged to participate in costly and sometimes lengthy seminars to help sell the group's product to others. Practices and influence techniques include deceptive sales techniques, guilt and shame, peer pressure, financial control, magical thinking, or guided imagery. There's also cults called New Age cults that are founded on the belief that you are God, or giving you power through internal knowledge, wanting you to know the future, or find the quick fix to healing, the quick fix to enlightenment, the quick fix to having the life you want. Often the leader presents him or herself as magical and ultra spiritual being. Oftentimes the leaders or the members of these groups call themselves mystical, or an ultra spiritual being, or a channeler, or an empath, or a medium, or a superhero that has like superhuman abilities, the ability of like persuasion or using the sixth sense to impact people, or having the death touch, or being able to send your energy outside of yourself to somebody else, like an X-Men character. New Age groups, more so than not, often tend to have female leaders. Members rely on New Age paraphernalia like crystals, astrology, ruins, shamanic devices, holistic medicine, herbs, spiritual beings, tarot cards, or other magic cards. Practices and influence techniques usually include magic tricks, altered states, peer pressure, channeling, UFO sightings, chakra adjustments like lining up your chakras, faith healing, like using the power of God to heal you, or claiming to speak with or speak through past masters who have become enlightened or ascended, or spiritual entities. There are also cults called cults of personality, which are rooted in a belief that reflects the charismatic personality of the revered leader. Such groups revolve around a particular theme or interest, such as martial arts, or opera, or dance, or theater, a certain form of art, or a type of medicine or healing. Practices and influence techniques often include intense training sessions that go for many days or many hours throughout the day, and usually involve a lot of sweating, physical fitness, dietary restrictions, and sleep deprivation. Techniques also include rituals. Within the martial arts, we have bowing, lining up in order, addressing people according to certain names, very ritualistic. Other techniques include blatant egocentrism, or elitist attitudes and behaviors. And the martial arts is oftentimes guilty of this, because when you get involved in the martial arts, you're always taught that the belt doesn't matter, and to be humble and not think because you're a black belt that you have this arrogance about you. But the structure of a traditional martial arts program is always designed so that the black belts, or the second blacks, or masters, or grandmaster, or instructors are always treated as the elite, and they have knowledge that you don't have, that you want to get, or maybe even they have knowledge that was given unto them by a divine figure from the past who the students of today do not have access to, like a martial arts leader who is an incredible specimen but is dead now, so only the people who met or trained with this person have that divine knowledge, and usually it's impossible for you to get that divine knowledge. If you're experiencing any of these things, I would do a double take and just be woke and look around to see what's actually happening around you. So that was a lot of information thrown at you there, but it's very impactful to me because when I was a young teenager getting involved in the Chinese martial arts, all the things I read to you was exactly what I was looking for. I was a very strong guy, but I was also impressionable. I was very easily swayed because I had come from a family who had just got divorced, whose father wasn't really in the picture as I transitioned from like being a young teenager into an adult. So I was looking for some kind of direction. I was looking for something special. I was looking for some kind of direction in my life. And a lot of times if you fall into a group that is structured in a way that manipulates you to benefit the leadership, you can easily be swayed into a culty kind of group because you're actually looking for the things that they are offering to you. Special skills, divine knowledge, travel, history, a connection to past enlightened figures, maybe enlightenment yourself. You're looking for the answers, and that makes you a target to be easily manipulated and swayed by somebody who's willing to do that. A lot of times if you fall into a group that is considered a culty kind of group, you have no idea you're in the cult while it's happening. Because nobody says, yeah, I'm in a cult and it's fantastic. And it's always very subtle and it's a gray area. I watched this episode of The Office one time, the television series The Office, where Creed one time says he's been in many kinds of cults over many years as a leader and a follower. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader. And I thought that was a very, very powerful part of that show, and very true. There's another article here called, Am I in a Cult? Have you ever asked yourself or ever had somebody else ask you, are you in a cult? There are some questions you can ask yourself and see what you answer. Have you noticed that the ideals of your group have filtered into all areas of your life, including work, social, or personal areas? Have your friends or family ever commented that you have changed recently and the changes are interesting, or they don't really understand them, or they don't really like them? Have you ever noticed that you spend less and less time with your friends and family and more time with members of your group? Do you ever find it boring or awkward spending time with people who are outside of your program or outside of your group because the people on the outside seem boring, or they just don't understand the goings on of the group? Do you believe that people who are outside of your group, that they are not on the same level as you? And they're not on the same level as other members of the group or the leaders of your group. This one's very powerful, especially within the vegan community. I really should put this video on my Vegan Athlete YouTube channel. I've been vegan for 18 years now, and what I've noticed recently is that there are more and more people adopting the vegan lifestyle, and more every year I have vegan people think that they are above people that are outside the vegan circle because the people on the outside just don't understand, and we are the ones who are trying to save animals, and we're trying to save the earth's resources and trying to live longer and healthy and transcend diseases like heart disease and cancer through our vegan diet. And that may be true, but I have definitely experienced every day of my life that other vegans that are in my community consider people outside the vegan movement to not be on the same level and not be as woke as those in the vegan community. And it's the same thing for martial arts programs. Many martial artists believe that people outside the martial arts are not on the same level in terms of awareness, personal empowerment, confidence, history, background, fitness, knowledge. Do you consider that the group's ideas that you're involved in or their beliefs are a way forward in sorting out the problems of the world? Or have you ever thought that if everybody in the world knew the stuff that you know, would the world be a better and different place? Has anybody close to you or in your circle that's outside of your group ever commented the word cult, or that it sounds like you're in a cult, or I think you might be in a cult, even if it's in a joking manner? When you ask yourself, this group seems kind of culty, you think straight away, nonsense, I would never be in a cult myself. If someone within your martial arts school or your group or your way of thinking ever criticizes the leader, or ever criticizes the group, or ever criticizes the group ideas, do you or other members have to instantly explain why they're wrong? And do you have like a passion and a strong urgency to explain the benefits of your group or your way of thinking or your program to other people outside the group? Have people often said you seem pushy or obsessive about your class or your group or your way of thinking? Do you sometimes feel that you know more than people outside your group about things like the world and like people and like society? Do you know more? Are you special? And do you find yourself recommending your belief system or your group or your program to other people outside of the group for a lot of their problems? And do you often go to people who are outside your group that have problems? And do you often recommend your group, your way of thinking, or the courses or programs within your belief system to them as a solution? If you're in a group that's manipulating you, or you're in a culty type of organization, or if you're in a full-on cult, there's usually people that you revere as the leaders of the group. They're either the most popular, or they're actually the leader, like a grandmaster in the martial arts, or like a sifu or an instructor in the martial arts, or like the most popular people in the vegan community, or like the CEO of a company, or like the priest or the pope of your religious organization. Have you noticed that there is one set of rules for the leaders, but another set of rules for the members of the group? Do you think the leader or leaders or the top dogs are always right? And do the leaders of your program change their mind when it best suits them? And I've experienced this in the martial arts many times. Oftentimes you might take a seminar with one of the masters of your martial arts school, and they're teaching something like, let's say, monkey style kung fu, or let's say Tai Chi. And they teach a kata, or a Tao Lu, or a meditation technique, or a sequence, or a form. And you learn it, and you got it down. You meet with them next time, and they've changed it. Maybe just subtly, maybe significantly. And you're like, I think this changed from last time. But they're like, no, it didn't change. You just didn't see it right the first time. That's a red flag to me, because that means that the leader is always right, and they're changing the techniques and they're changing their mindset to suit them and to make you feel a little bit less than them and to kind of make you fall into line. Does the leader or the leadership of your program make all the decisions, and are they the final say? And are they answerable to no one but themselves? Typically, this happens especially if they have received divine knowledge from an enlightened being or an enlightened person that you will never have access to. Do you feel very indebted to the leader? Do you feel like you owe them a lot? Like, oh, I'm so thankful and so lucky to be with this person. And is the leader, he or she, not afraid to remind you from time to time, especially in a subtle way, how you do owe them a lot because they're giving you so much for free, you now owe them a ton. There's oftentimes like emotional connections with you and the group. Do you ever feel bad or guilty for not behaving as the leader or the group says you should behave. To be honest, I was raised Christian. I was raised to believe in Jesus and God from my parents from an early age. We went to church every Sunday. I was involved in weekly Bible study. My dad went through Catholic confirmation. He always wore his confirmation ring on his finger. And so from before I can even remember, I have been subject to the rules and the punishments and the manipulations of the religion of Christianity. Even to this day, I have a hard time doing something that might be seen in the Catholic Church as a sinful act. I have a really hard time doing those things and then not asking God for forgiveness. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. If I say a bad word like the F word, or if you have sex out of wedlock, or if I use the Lord's name in vain, I have a really hard time doing those things without quietly on my own later saying, please forgive me, amen, amen. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to not do that. And this kind of mentality can be applied not just to religion, but to many different kinds of groups. Human beings are very easily manipulated and swayed. The emotional connection you have to the leaders of a program, or to the leaders of the group, or to the ideals of the group itself are very easily manipulated and very easily attached, so that you feel the connection emotionally to the beliefs or the leaders of the program, even when nobody's watching. Does the group that you're involved in teach that you should live your emotions, but at the same time, you can control your emotions at will? Do you find that you have very strong emotions, sometimes for no apparent reason? Just spontaneous happiness, spontaneous laughing, spontaneous crying, or when you go to a seminar with your program, or when you're in the presence of the leaders of the school or the program you're involved in, do you have this sense of emotional euphoria, like this seminar was just so incredible, I'm on this high, I feel better than I've ever felt before, and I just can't explain why. And when you're talking to people outside of the group, you say to them, this was such an amazing experience being at this workshop, being in front of this person, and I just can't explain to you why I feel this way. You just have to be there to experience it for yourself. You just have to be there. I can't explain it. Red flag. Do you sometimes feel alone when there seems to be no real need to feel lonely? And are you sometimes feeling frustration because you cannot get the techniques of the group to work properly for you? Have you ever left one of the meetings, one of the seminars, one of the classes, or one of the workshops in your organization feeling very angry and vowing to other students, maybe even to yourself, that I'm so mad I will never go back to this workshop or go back to this person or go back to this group, but then some time passes and you go back anyways? Right now, ask yourself a question. Can you write down 3 negative things or 3 defects about the leadership or the leader of your program? And if you do write down something negative or a defect of the leader or the leadership of your class or your group, do you somehow have an excuse for them? I think no matter who you are and no matter what hobbies you're into, whether it's yoga, dance, whale watching, fitness, golf, mathematics, chess, hiking, gardening, or martial arts, you're always going to come across the same kinds of people and the same kinds of emotions. As long as you're alive and as long as you're a human being, you're gonna come across other humans who are fantastic, other human beings who you don't like, and other human beings who are trying to help you, and maybe some who are trying to use you or manipulate you. This is my martial arts channel. We're about to hit 1 million subscribers. I've been uploading videos on the traditional Chinese martial arts to this channel for over 10 years. And the practice of Chinese Kung Fu and the practice of Chinese Tai Chi Chuan and the practice of Chinese Qigong is to free yourself of manipulation. It's to free yourself of the filters that cloud what true reality is. And the whole goal of a Shaolin Kung Fu master is to experience the events happening in front of you with clarity, and to be at one with yourself, and to be at one with nature around you. And that includes the people. If you guys go back and watch the old Kung Fu series with David Carradine from the 70s, every episode of that show would use the philosophy of Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism to show how Cain, the wandering monk in the American Old West, was free of cultiness. He was free of being manipulated, and he was at one with himself, which oftentimes made him lonely. But he was never lonely because he would find connection, he would find kinship, and he would find purpose in the wind blowing through the trees. He would find purpose in helping somebody else who was in need. He would find purpose in playing his flute or just walking from environment to environment, walking from city to city. If the sun was shining, if the wind was blowing, if the rain was hitting his skin, he was happy and at one with himself. So with a video like this, I challenge you guys to be like Kane from the old Kung Fu series. I challenge you guys to break free of the leaders of your organization. That doesn't mean be mean or be negative or be bad. What it means is that recognize that everybody who's human and everybody who is alive today is the exact same as you. Nobody has divine knowledge. Nobody has all the answers. Even the person who is the most holy, who is the most enlightened, and who seems to be the most in control of themselves, they are battling their own demons. They bleed just like you. They feel pain in their joints just like you. They deal with lust and with sin just like you. Nobody is perfect. Everybody is trying to just make it in this world. If they're alive and breathing, they're just like you, and the same emotions that you feel and the same thoughts that you are experiencing and the same physical journey that you're going through, they are going through as well. Especially if you're a young woman or a young man, I want you to remember these words carefully, because the problem with a young person is that if you're a teenager, if you're a young 20-some-year-old, you don't know anything yet. Honestly, you don't know how to do anything. Even if you're 25 years old, you're not really an adult yet. You're just trying to make it in this world. And anybody who's 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years old does not take you seriously if you're a 20 or 25-year-old, because you are a young pup. The comedian Louis C.K. had a comedy bit one time that said, even the dumbest garbage man who is 75 years old is infinitely smarter than the PhD double masters holding 25-year-old, because that 25-year-old doesn't really know anything that's of value in the world yet. The garbage man who is 75 years old has gone through so much stuff in their life. They have so much experience and knowledge. They are way smarter than the smartest college-educated young person. So here's my final message before I shut this video down. If you're young and you're looking for the answers in life, the only way you can find those answers is to go out and create yourself, is to go out and put yourself in difficult situations to gain experience. Your goal right now as a young person, even as an old person, is to constantly be learning new things and gaining experience. Go out and learn from different people. Go get opposing belief systems. Go learn why somebody believes X, but somebody else believes Y. Go out outside of your country and experience different cultures in the world. If you're an American, go to a third world country and go find out what people in China believe, or India believe, or Canada believe, or Spain believe. If you meet anybody who you respect, if you meet anybody who you want to model yourself after, who's 50, 60, 70 years old, you probably love that person because you're picking up on their experience. And you have to have manners in this world. You have to be polite and you have to respect people. But I do not want you guys to worship anybody. I want you guys to stay humble yourself and to live a peaceful life at one with nature around you, but to get out there and experience a lot of hobbies, experience a lot of subject matters, experience a lot of people, and experience a lot of cultures. And if you do this, you will have a divine and ancient wisdom that's behind your eyeballs. Everybody has eyes, everybody has a nose, everybody has a third eye. But not everybody has the same experience behind those eyes, behind that third eye, behind that nose. It's up to you to go out there and get that experience and to become enlightened, whatever that means to you. I'm right now looking out toward Teide in the Canary Islands. It's a volcano here in the town of Tenerife. I'm on my own journey. What journey are you on?